Hello, everybody. Welcome to End Times Talk and good morning. I really quickly want to show what I showed yesterday. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to give a brief, kind of what this is for people that haven't seen this yet. This is a letter that was sent out by the higher up management in headquarters of AutoZone to different managers and things like that in the southeast region of AutoZone. I'm sure there's other letters that have been sent out to other AutoZones, but this is just to that area. But it covers basically, that they're expecting a difficult time coming. A time of hardship is literally what they're saying in the letter, that a time of hardship is coming. And they're also talking about how oil is going to be in extremely short supply and that they want to lead the pack in bringing about oil substitutes that people can use that can get them by uh, from good to worst. What's okay to use, and even down to this only use this in an emergency. You know what I mean? I have a feeling that it's going to cause a lot of damage, but you can't help with what's out of your control. This whole thing with the Strait of Hormuz and the oil situation is just off the Richter scale. I mean, 3 months of shutdown, and we barely started to see the culmination of this issue. It's going to take, it would probably take into at least 2027 or 2028 to fix all the problems that are going to ensue very soon, even if the straits opened up right now and everything got fixed, right? Like if everybody agreed, okay, we'll stop fighting, you're still going to have a hard time even into 2027 from the damage that's been done. Like there's been a domino that's been pushed over, and it's clicking along down the line of dominoes. Each domino keeps falling over, and there's going to be a ripple effect from what's happening. But people aren't taking it seriously right now because they're not really seeing it too much. They're seeing it at the gas pump, they're seeing it here and there at the cost of certain things you need done with your vehicle. Oil changes have even gone up, all this stuff. So the price of oil, lubricant for, your engine, for your mower, for whatever you have, your snowmobile, your jet ski, whatever you use it for. Okay, these things are going to be in much more difficult, they're going to be much more difficult to obtain and be in much smaller supply. And so they're sending out, these memos. Anyways, so with that being said, all right, there is another thing I want to show you that I found from Toyota, that they just issued a strange warning to dealers amid the oil shortage that's going on right now. Let me blow this up here. All right. And it says that a new Toyota dealer bulletin is starting to spread online, and it's raising a question most enthusiasts never expected to ask in 2026. Why is Toyota suddenly telling dealers to substitute engine oil? Same thing that AutoZone is telling their people, okay? And trust me, if you have to substitute engine oil, I'm telling you that they're getting ready to take us completely off the whole gas and oil thing. Like, I'm pretty sure even the electric vehicles need engine oil to a certain extent. Like, with their moving parts, the wheels and all this stuff. I mean, every gear and all that stuff needs to have oil lubricant. You know what I mean? So it can move properly and not grind down to nothing. All right. So here's the thing: if oil is in short supply and even electric vehicles need oil, where does that leave us with gas? And I'm just putting that out there, right? But it says the internal document 2026-013 dated April 30th, 2026. So this was put out a while ago. Warns Toyota parts. I mean, it's got almost 3 weeks, basically 3 weeks now. This has been out and well known And it says warns Toyota parts and service managers about temporary supply issues involving Toyota genuine motor oil OW8 and OW16. According to the bulletin, Toyota and ExxonMobil may experience challenges in fulfilling demand due to production and logistics. And this is, again, this is just for right now. This is what they're telling everybody right now. All right. And I'm sure it's going to get worse. Actually, you know what? I know it's going to get worse. I'm just giving you the details and the evidence that this is beginning. We're seeing, the little trickle, first the trickle, then the flood, comes. All right. Anytime there's a flood that's happening, a flood of chaos or whatever, like when a dam, starts to break, there's always a little leak first, and then kaboom, the whole dam cuts loose and the town gets flooded or whatever, you know what I mean? And so with this, it says these places may experience challenges in fulfilling demand due to production and logistics constraint within the global petrochemical supply chain. And honestly, the timing is hard to ignore, is what they're saying. And the thing is, that's just what they're telling us right now. I'm sure in 30 more days, they're going to be sending out another memo. All right. I'm sure. All right. But it says here, and I'm going to try to read this as best as I can because that's a little blurry. Toyota is reportedly facing a supply issue with ultra thin oils. It says here, April 30th, 2026, to Toyota parts and service managers. So it's just for the managers to know. It's not for the lower end people to know. Temporary oil supply and maintenance guidelines. Toyota and our supplier ExxonMobil may experience challenges in fulfilling demand for genuine Toyota motor oil, GTMO, OW8, and OW16 oils due to production and logistics constraints within the global petrochemical supply chain. While Toyota and ExxonMobil continue to work diligently to maintain supply, the following substitution guidelines are recommended for dealers to help manage the demand for the affected products. These measures may allow ExxonMobil to maintain a consistent service level for dealers and to help provide continued support for our guests. TMNA recommends dealers follow these substitutes guidelines 1 day per week for OW8 and 1 day every other week for OW16, or use the substitution percentages set forth below until further written notice. This approach is intended to temporarily reduce demand for both oil weights and support continued national supply. So they're literally telling them what to mix to make things work. And so that's, and again, with the AutoZone stuff, they're talking about they're doing testing to see what people can use in a pinch too, for this stuff, and they're sharing substitutes. Well, if you don't have this type of oil, you can use this type of oil, but eventually that's going to run out too. And it's, so if they're saying that there's not enough of this oil, it means eventually there's not going to be enough of that oil that they're using to substitute this oil that's in high demand, right? Because, if something's in high demand and you need these 2 things or 3 things to make something that's in high demand, those 3 products become in high demand. And once those are in high demand, then what else are you going to use to substitute those 3 products? And so it's a chain reaction. All right, this is just the first stage, is what I'm trying to show you. Now, give me a moment here. I'm trying to find this here. So they're talking about a base oil supply crisis. The Independent Lubricant Manufacturers Association has come out, and it says the bottom line. I'm just going to read this here. Base oils make up roughly 75% of finished crankcase lubricants and as much as 98% of many industrial formulations such as turbine and hydraulic oils, and serve as the diluent for the additives that make up the rest. They are in serious global short supply. So it tells you where everything else is going too. All of this stuff is going to start to, it's going to domino effect. It's going to spread out. It's not going to just stay, oh, this is in short supply. It's going to be these are in short supply, and then all of these are in short supply. It says 3 reinforcing pressures: Middle East conflict, constrained Korean refining, and diesel driven refinery economics are simultaneously squeezing both Group 3 and Group 2 base stocks. The result is unprecedented, there you go, there's the word, unprecedented upward pressure on lubricant costs. So the price of this stuff is going to go through the roof. So get it while you can. Get it while you can. And conditions are not expected to fully resolve until at least mid 2027. They're saying at least. And again, the straits have not opened up. And let me remind people what Iran has said. They will not reopen those straits even if the war ends. They want, you have to understand, and I think there's Sunnis. I don't believe they're Shiites. I think they're Sunni Muslims. It's one or the other, but I know that the Iranians are the type of Muslim that they believe in bringing about an accelerated apocalypse. Like, they believe in the end times. They're the side, I know that because I've researched it before. I just forget which one is which, Sunni or Shiite, but they are the type of Muslims that believe that the apocalypse can be accelerated. Okay. And they have literally stated, that they're ready for the apocalypse. They've told America that, like this is their final stand on their, holy war, jihad, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But they're trying to do as much damage as they possibly can. And so I don't expect this to get any better anytime soon. And I'm talking within the next year or two, at least. All right. I'm saying things are about to change, I believe, pretty close to permanently. All right. Again, nothing that they've said has told us they're opening up any oil reserve or any oil drilling, companies to try to go out and find more oil and to meet this demand, globally speaking, without, and figure out a way or build a way around the transit issue, at least. Dig a new tunnel, build some train tracks. But see, that what's interesting is, and I know I'm going way off track here. All right. For those of you that have watched my videos about mystery, comma Babylon. All right. Mystery, comma Babylon. All right. That I believe that this end times Babylon is, again, Babylon. All right. In modern day Iraq, what would be modern day Iraq. And they are building a transit system for trade that goes straight through Babylon, Iraq. And it would actually make it a lot easier for them to transport oil. They would have to have a lot of trains going back and forth, but that definitely could solve the issue of the oil in the Middle East. They could be building it and cutting this off so that way Babylon could be built up. You know what I'm saying? Financially, and it will, and it is. I have a whole video that I did on it. And if you want to see that video, remind me in the comment section below, and I will get the link and I will put it, give it to you in the comment section below, and I'll try to pin it so that way people can go see, why I have a strong stance that Babylon, Iraq is modern day Babylon, is going to be, mystery, what they would call mystery Babylon, but it's mystery, comma Babylon. It's not just mystery Babylon. It's a mystery, but it's Babylon. Babylon is Babylon, even though there are spiritual Babylons. Anyways, I go deep into it in this video. I don't want to get too off base, but this whole shortage, globally speaking, with the fuel and all that stuff, if there was a way around it, that would be a way around it for sure. You can only switch to an EV system so much. I mean, I still believe there's a whole crap ton of people that are going to hold out. They're going to say, well, we'll just make our own oil or do, you know what I mean? So there's going to be someone that's going to hold out. Anyways, they're saying though that the lubricant prices are rising. The ILMA, again, Independent Lubricant Manufacturers Association, and they have quite a bit of information here, but they've sent out a memo even about they're calling it the 2026 global base oil supply crisis. So it's a growing issue. We're starting to see more information trickling out from that sector of the problems in the world. From the oil crisis, we're starting to see that kind of take shape. All right, now with that being said, and I know this is Al Jazeera, but they have actually, because they're not far from that area, so they have some up to date numbers. That's the only reason I'm showing it, is it's more up to date numbers. But the World Health Organization is saying 600, over 600 suspected cases, and now 139 deaths in the growing Ebola outbreak. And they're saying numbers are expected to rise. They're warning, as European officials emphasize that the risk of a European outbreak is low. They're saying it's low, but there is a risk. All right, and I want to get into that a little more today. Hold on, let me get a drink. So, yeah, it's risen from 600, or risen all the way to 600. Yesterday, I think it was at 538 or 39. I think it was something like that. So I wanted to put that out there, and that way people can, have an update on how it's growing. It's literally like growing, like in suspected cases, almost 100 a day at this point. And there's a whole bunch of stuff popping up. Now, this is an interesting one. Passenger on Paris to Detroit flight is diverted due to Ebola entry restrictions. And this is the details of what happened. The Ebola outbreak impacting some countries in Africa created a scare in the air for many Metro Detroiters. This is in Detroit, Michigan. A Detroit-bound flight from Paris was diverted to Canada on Wednesday night after U.S. Customs discovered a passenger from a country currently affected by the outbreak that was allowed on the plane. Now, they're not telling us what country. All right. Now that we know that the DRC is the most affected, and there's only a couple infected in Uganda. But there's all this talk of the South Sudan, and I tried to research it, and you couldn't really get any real information. All right, because it says right here the U.S. has issued travel restrictions for Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan. There should be a whole lot more travel restrictions in the surrounding nations around the DRC than just Uganda and South Sudan, because there's more than just Uganda and South Sudan. All right, so why does South Sudan keep coming up? And I'm just questioning things, because that's what I do, because I don't trust everything that they're telling me. I'm looking at what they're telling me, and I want to use the mind and common sense that God gave me to try to look, figure out what's going on. And again, things have changed, with suspected cases. Right here it says 543, but I just showed you a more updated thing. It's at 600 now. And it says right here 131 deaths, and so there was 8 more deaths yesterday than when this come out, and this came out yesterday. All right. So every day, all day, more deaths, more suspected cases is brewing. And here's that number 33, right? With 33 confirmed cases in the DRC, as well as 2 confirmed cases in Uganda. The U.S. has issued travel restrictions for Congo. And there's a lot that I want to say about the travel restrictions here in a moment that you need to know. But they've issued travel restrictions for Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan. Air France said the passenger was taken off the flight in Montreal, and then the rest of the passengers returned to Detroit Metro Airport on Thursday night. So why was he allowed in Canada but not allowed in America? maybe because Canada doesn't have a restriction or whatever, but there are so many people that could go here and go there. And there's so many people that just get into the country. Even now, they still are able to, just jump the border and get into the country. There is no real chains on this thing keeping it in line. Like, this thing is a crock pot of chaos that's brewing. And it's like, they need to figure out, and just contact trace all the way to, patient zero or whatever, the original patient, and find that. But they even said, publicly, they don't know who it is. They don't even know what animal this come from. They're saying it could be a bat, it could be a primate. But here's the problem. They still don't know where this has come from. All right. For all we know, this could have come from Fauci's lab. All right. And so it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things being mishandled here, and I want to point them out today. And there's a lot of double talk happening in what they're telling us. And I want to point that out today too, because it just goes to show somehow, some way we're being lied to right now. All right. And that's I got a problem with that. Now, it says that there was no medical emergency on board, okay, and it's not believed the passenger was showing active symptoms. So why are they using that lingo? Why they're not saying that the passenger tested negative, and we would know that by now, okay? Whether tell us did the passenger have it or not? Why aren't you telling us that? And why are you saying that the passenger was showing it's not believed that the passenger was showing active symptoms? So what you mean, like he's got active symptoms now, or he, tested positive, and it's that speech is there, which leads me to believe there's more to what is behind all this. One woman on board said listen to this, halfway through the flight, the captain told them they were being diverted, and then the flight attendant started putting on masks. They say mass here, but it's misspelling. They're trying to say masks. And they didn't really tell us why, Deborah Mister said. The captain said that it was the U.S. government not allowing us to land in Detroit. Mister was on Air Force France Flight 375 when it was diverted to Montreal, Canada, with no explanation. By that point, the flight attendants all had masks on, which no one had prior to the announcement. So it was really concerning. Like, what is going on here? Why are we not being allowed to land? She said. Mister said the only information given came from a flight attendant saying that a passenger from the Democratic Republic of Congo was on board an area hit by the Ebola outbreak. U.S. CBS confirmed in a statement that the passenger shouldn't have been on the flight. This particular passenger did not have any active symptoms. All right, there's that word that the putting that out there again, or showing any signs of Ebola activity. What he is now? It just the way they're saying it sounds strange. Like, it sounds like we don't want to lie to them, but we're going to word it like this. You know what I mean? How like some people, even when they're lying to you, they're telling you the truth. Or how some people are trying to skirt around, telling you the truth, and they outright admit, kind of the way that they word things in what they're saying. Kind of like when a cop comes up to you and says, I'm looking for so-and-so. And you're like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. Well, I wasn't there on Friday night. And then the cop's like, well, I didn't say nothing about you being anywhere on Friday. You know what I mean? So why are you admitting it? You know what I mean? So it's almost like there's like an admission in that. And call me crazy, I don't care, but that's the way I see that, right? Dr. Matthew Sims, the medical director of infectious disease research for Corewell Health East, said people shouldn't panic. It doesn't spread super easily. So, but again, it spreads easily, right? You know what I mean? Like, what if someone coughs and their spit gets on you? What if a mosquito bites you? How long does that virus stay active within the guts of said mosquito, or on the mouth bits and the mouth parts of a mosquito, or something else that's going to bite you, like say like a tick or something like that? How long can that stay alive? Not long. But if you're in a setting where, someone has it, and then that bug goes from that mosquito bites them, and then decides, I don't like the taste of that, and goes to you and bites you, then wouldn't you have it? I mean, they're even saying, and I'm sorry to be graphic here, like we're all adults here and all that stuff, but I'm trying to find my notes here, but they're saying that, and again, I'm going to try to skirt around saying the actual word here, but when it comes to male secretions, they say that Ebola can be in that up to 2.7 to 3 years. That's insane to me. And it can be an eye fluid for weeks or months. So if it can be in male secretions, okay, and eye fluid for so long, what about it being on a mosquito? What about a bioengineered mosquito that could? I'm hypothesizing here, but I'm just saying, like, what they're saying doesn't add up to me. Saying it doesn't spread super easily. Like, that's the way I read it. Like, well, it doesn't spread super easily, but it does spread easily. You mean that? Like that kind of wordage. And it tends to spread more in areas of the world where you don't have the tracking in place, he said. So it tends, but it doesn't always spread more in air. You know what I mean? So it's like they're really playing it down, but leaving things open to where they have that like plausible deniability. Well, I didn't say that, but on Sunday, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak in Africa a public health emergency of international concern. Then Monday, the CDC ordered a 30-day entry restriction on non-U.S. passport holders who've been in the DRC, Uganda, or South Sudan in the past 21 days. Neither airline has offered us any information whatsoever. No health officials. This is what's funny. The airline hasn't informed CBS, because CBS is the one reporting this. This is ABC. Sorry, this is WXYZ Detroit. This is a Detroit news, ABC affiliated news station here that we're getting this from. And they're saying neither airline has offered us any information whatsoever. No health officials offered us any info, Mr. said. Should we be concerned? Was that person exposed? And that's the thing. You would ask that. I mean, they didn't answer that. Nothing in that what we've been given tells us whether this person was exposed or not, or whether they tested positive or not. That's what you should be telling the public. You see, but they're holding that back, and that's what leads me to believe maybe he was. Now, here's the thing. If he was, and they're not giving out any info, if there is a cover-up that there was an active person with Ebola on a plane with how many other passengers that were sent home to their families, all right? Think about it. It says right here, it says, was that person exposed? Was this just an overabundance of caution? What steps should we be taking to protect ourselves or anyone around us, is what the person is saying. And then officials are looking into how the passenger was allowed to board the flight. What, did he have Ebola and didn't want to be involved in the lockdown that's happening? Or were you a bioweapon that was being sent to America to do damage? And if that's the case, then that's even scarier, man. That's even scarier. So I'm just kind of blown away by, and I've always tried to look at like the wording that they're, take them at their word. Always look at the wording and the way that they're wording things. I think that that's rather important when it comes to this. And I'm showing you this next article because the article I have to show you after that one. Give me a moment here. So they're saying, The Guardian is saying, the U.S. is simply choosing not to stop Ebola outbreak after massive public health cuts, experts say. So I want to read this here. A previously undetected outbreak of Ebola is coursing through parts of Central Africa, and the U.S. appears to be doing little to help stop it. All right, make sure that you really remember that the U.S. appears to be doing little to help stop it after massive cuts to global and domestic public health efforts. There is no cure, no vaccine for the rare Bundibugyo variant of Ebola, which has caused 2 outbreaks in recent decades. Health leaders and scientists are now racing to understand where the virus is spreading and attempting to stop it. So they don't know where the virus is spreading, and they haven't been able to stop it. So people, you need to know that. They're telling you that. But the U.S. is notably absent in these efforts. Isn't that interesting? Just putting that out there, right? It says, in the past year, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, has... Hold on, this is my... Hold on, that was my alarm. They're saying the U.S. is notably absent in these efforts. In the past year, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, has been dismantled. Thousands of staff at U.S. health agencies were laid off, communications stalled, and key scientific research canceled. You see how they're all painting it now? But here's the thing. They might not be wrong. They might not be wrong. This might all be intentional. And you know, that's something I never thought of, was that thousands of staff at U.S. health agencies were laid off. Because, but there was a lot of, they were trying to weed out this deep state stuff. And with that, there's this huge gap, They're saying that there are 482 suspected cases, but we know that there's 600 now. We covered that earlier. And they're saying about 139 deaths now. That right here says 116. Since April in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with 2 cases and 1 death in Uganda, and potential... Listen, right here. Listen, pay close attention. And potential spread to neighboring South Sudan. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, everybody? And this is something that I've been trying to emphasize all throughout this, okay, is that they keep bringing up the South Sudan, adding it to Uganda. And what if we're just flat out being lied to? I'm just saying, like, what if it's worse than what they're saying? And because they've all admitted that it's worse than what they're saying, but they literally, it went from DRC to now Uganda, now to South Sudan. All right, is what it's looking like to me. And this is from The Guardian. It says the outbreak might have been going on for a few months, said Christian Anderson, a professor of immunology and microbiology at Scripps Research. So this might have been going on for a few months and nothing was being done about it. And it's way worse than anybody knows. And they're just keeping it under wraps. They're keeping it, So I'm hoping that this is wrong. I'm hoping that, that the reality is that, there's no Ebola coming and that there's nothing to worry about and that life will continue on as is up until the rapture comes. That's what I pray. But the reality of this is that we're being told that things aren't lining up with what we're being told. Okay. And there's a lot of double speak happening that I'm noticing from article to article to article. And that means somebody is lying to us. And then you have to ask yourself why. So it says the outbreak was immediately declared a public health emergency of international concern. Why would they do that if it wasn't a health emergency of international concern? And you got all these world leaders, like even Donald Trump and even President Putin in Russia is saying now he's concerned about Ebola. I could show you the articles, but I'm not pulling them up today. Just trust me. They Trump and Putin are saying they're worried about Ebola now. And so now it's becoming more. It's spreading out. It's growing. It's been a couple of days now. Things are starting to move along, and it's not getting smaller. They're not stopping it. We're not seeing things like, hey, this seems to be going in the right direction now. We've finally gotten ahead of this thing. Are you hearing that anywhere? I'm not. So, again, listen. So they declare a public health emergency of international concern. Listen to this, all right, by Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I think I did a pretty good job at that, the Director General of the World Health Organization, before even convening the committee that usually makes that determination, officials say it may last for months. Months. There's officials are saying that this declaration of a public health emergency of international concern, officials are saying that it may last for months. Right here. What does that tell you? You got oil shortages coming. You got Ebola, warnings and all this crap going on for months. It says the DRC is one of the most vulnerable health systems in the world, and they must have known that, and was the second biggest recipient of USAID funding. Oh, interesting. Said Matthew Cavanagh, director of the Center for Global Health Policy and Politics at Georgetown University. The U.S. withdrawal of funding with zero notice has been disruptive to the country's basic activities, he said. U.S. foreign assistance to the DRC dropped from $1.4 billion in 2024 to, listen to this, $431 million in 2025, and only $21 million so far this year. It's almost like, hey, we knew this was coming, or we need you to make this virus in this area. Here's the funding for it. And then we're just slowly defunding you from $1.4 billion to literally less than $500,000 to $21 million. All right, so far this year. And we're about halfway into the year almost. So I mean, think about it. All right, and it says assistance to Uganda dropped from $674 million to $377 million in 2025, and a negative 1.2 million so far in 2026. So America has pulled their funding completely out of that area, completely. So it's like, what was being funded there, and why is it being pulled out all of a sudden? Think about that for a moment. It says right here, it was pennies compared to what you get in return, Anderson said, of global health investments. It is far cheaper and easier to prevent and contain outbreaks than it is to respond to them. So was this America withdrawing because they knew this would happen eventually? Is that what it was about? Is that they knew if they withdrew their funding that this stuff is going to be a thing? Well, who else is going to fit the bill? Someone else needs to step up and fit the bill if that's the case. Why is this being allowed? So it says, it said, with the U.S. cutting off the first option, the second scenario will become increasingly common. Hold on, let me get a drink here. It says the U.S. also announced it would leave the World Health Organization and end $130 million in funding, which resulted in 2,371 lost jobs at the organization, Cavanagh said, calling the cuts a self-inflicted wound that the administration has really brought on us. This outbreak and response was deeply foreseeable when you got public health surveillance and you got public health capacity, Cavanagh said. It's not just that we're leaving the table. We are completely cutting ourselves out of the conversation, Anderson said. We are upending the table. The CDC has always been the premier agency when it comes to country-level leadership and played a key role as a partner you could turn to, Anderson said. But under the second Trump administration, Ebola response teams were suspended, interesting, in health centers and medical supplies, particularly crucial with the virus spread through touch. With supportive care, the only treatment were dramatically cut back. A world-class Ebola lab in Frederick, Maryland, with the National Institutes of Health was designed for exactly this scenario. The lab would normally be swinging into action, following up on research indicating monoclonal antibodies, and a vaccine might be effective against this strain, possibly testing those treatments and vaccines, performing in-depth sequencing work on samples shared during the outbreak. But the lab was shuttered last year, with staff laid off abruptly and their work, key for preventing and responding to outbreaks, this is interesting, ended with no notice. Now, I don't know if this is just their little liberal democratic spin on it, okay, but it's interesting to hear this side of it, at least, at minimum. It says the website for the lab is still closed, indicating it has not been revived during this outbreak. So the things that were in place to stop this from happening were taken out of place and now it's happening. What does that sound like to you? What does that sound like to you? It sounds like to me that something's off. This is really off sounding to me. And I mean, this just keeps going and going. I'm almost done, I think. Sadish Pillay, an incident manager for the CDC's Ebola response, said he can't speak to the NIH lab when The Guardian asked about it in a press conference on Monday. Instead, Pillay said that the U.S. is able to test for Ebola through its laboratory network, a comment unrelated to The Guardian's questions. Because of layoffs, terminations, and high-profile departures, key confirmed positions at U.S. health agencies are vacant. Currently, the CDC has no director. There's no U.S. Surgeon General. There's no commissioner at the FDA. And officials say there are now between 25 and 30 staff in the DRC country office. The CDC is sending one more person. I'll be honest with you, for there being an outbreak of such things and trying to have boots on the ground and keep an eye on this thing and all that stuff, they only have 30 staff members and they're going to send one more. That's not a whole lot for a situation like this. You figure, America could help at least. I mean, it seems like it's a global concern, it's but I mean, I'm not saying send 100 people there, but I'm saying that's just not a lot of people. And I guess there are other experts that are available remotely, so that's good. Yeah, we do live in that age now where people can be on computer. It says the DRC office suffered massive and sudden cuts when USAID was unexpectedly dissolved last year. Former employees sued the U.S. government after they were abandoned and lost everything with no jobs or options to evacuate from DRC, they said. So they have no options to even get out of there from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through and read any more of this, but I'm telling you, it just seems to me like everything's been done to allow this to happen. And the only thing that they've really done is supposed to have, shut off the flights and all that stuff. Well, with that being said, I'd like to kind of, talk about that for a moment, actually. They're saying DHS to tighten Ebola-related flight restrictions for some foreign travelers. Listen to this. So when they told us no flights in or out, to the DRC, or no flights from the DRC or any of these other places into America, listen to the next couple of things I want to share with you, okay? This is interesting. And this shows how open, this is where it gets scary. Like, if what I've said so far doesn't bother you, what I'm about to tell you, this is where it gets unnerving, in my opinion, all right? This is where I see a huge problem. DHS to tighten Ebola-related flight restrictions for some foreign travelers. The Department of Homeland Security is set to implement new entry restrictions beginning Thursday. That's today. That's today for foreign travelers coming to the United States from countries at the center of the latest Ebola outbreak. Wait a minute. The Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, is implementing new entry restrictions today for foreign travelers that are coming to the United States from these places where Ebola is outbreaking. So they're going to allow it. Listen to this. According to a draft of a new DHS rule scheduled to be published today, all U.S.-bound flights carrying foreign travelers who have been in Congo, Uganda, and here again, there's that mention of South Sudan, all right? And it wasn't before. It was just Congo and Uganda. Now it's South Sudan. Listen to this. At any point in the previous 21 days, will be required to fly into Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia. They're telling you right there that they are allowing people, all right, maybe not foreigners or anything like that, but they're saying U.S.-bound flights carrying foreign travelers, all right? So I'm telling you, the more I read into it, all right, the more I'm like, they're just letting them in here willy-nilly is what they're doing. It's like they want this thing to happen. All right, because listen, just wait. Let me break this down more. It says right here, the arrival restrictions issued at the direction of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen are designed to funnel those travelers to an airport where the U.S. government is focusing public health resources to implement enhanced public health measures, the rule states. Well, I thought you weren't letting anybody in. I thought that someone can have it and they can test negative for 21 days and they're not positive until they start showing symptoms. And what if they get around their family? Then oh, I'm just sick. Oh, Marge, I just got a cough, Marge. I'm all right. Oh, can I have a kiss? Mwah! I love you. Have a great day at work. I'll see you. Oh, hey, little Johnny. Oh, you getting ready for breakfast? Let me make you a meal. I mean, come on, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. We were told that when Trump enacted this travel restriction thing, that nobody would be coming in. Now they're changing it today. They're changing it today after all of a sudden this group of people, the WHO, said they didn't agree with you, Trump. I thought you weren't a part of them, Trump. I thought you withdrew from all of that, Trump. But now that the WHO shamed you, now all of a sudden Thursday, we're all going to start being exposed in America to people that have been to this area where Ebola is outbreaking. Now, let me tell you this. If there is anybody that has Ebola in America, you're going to know why, and you're going to know who to blame now. All right? Just saying. I'm just saying. All right, now, the arrival restrictions issued at the direction of the Security Secretary are designed to funnel those travelers to an airport where the U.S. government is focusing public health resources to implement enhanced public health measures, the rule states. The rule applies only to passenger flights, DHS said, with cargo flights excluded from the restrictions. In a statement provided to CBS News, a DHS spokesperson confirmed the new travel requirement, saying that to reduce the risk of Ebola virus spreading, Customs and Border Protection is enhancing public health screening. Well, shouldn't you just be stopping them from coming in altogether? And that would stop the virus from spreading? Because I thought that it incubates for 21 days, or it can, anywhere from 2 to 21 days. I showed you a video yesterday of a man that had Ebola, and he's pouring blood out of his mouth and out of his nose. And the lady that's helping him wasn't even wearing gloves. All right. So people aren't taking this thing seriously, right? It says the DHS spokesperson added that CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, or Border Protection, was coordinating with airlines, international partners, and port of entry officials to identify and manage travelers who may have been exposed to the Ebola virus. So how do you identify them? Wait until 21 days until they're bleeding out of their eyes and their mouth and their butthole? Is that what you do? It says right here, in its rule, DHS did not disclose what kind of specific protocols, and I have some that I can share with you in a little bit here, that they didn't disclose what kind of specific protocols foreign travelers will have to undergo upon arrival at Dulles. You want to know why? Because it ain't crap. It ain't crap. It can let anybody through. And I'm going to tell you, I'll just share it with you right now. Hold on. Let me get a drink here. Hold on. So this is all they're doing at Dulles. All right. The Dulles screening includes non-contact temperature checks, a visual symptom check, whether there's a fever or bleeding. All right. You think, but they're already on the plane if that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, come on. It says bleeding, etc. Then they give them a little liberal health questionnaire, all right, about exposure and symptoms. All right, are you feeling sick, Johnny? Is your tummy hurting, bud? Like that's the way it kind of comes off to me. All right, like we're just gonna mamby-pamby this situation when there's a real problem happening, and then here we go. Then collection of contact tracing information. So then they want to know all about you. Where are you going? Who are you hanging out with? Who have you been around? And what if they don't remember somebody? What if they don't? Oh, well, what if they got a criminal activity they're about to do and they don't tell you about Crazy Julio down at train 9 at the B station? You know what I mean? You know, so it's all relying on what the person, literally upon their temperature, how healthy they look, and asking them a few questions. This is the screening that they're doing at the Dulles Airport in Virginia. And hold on one second. And again, it says here, it says, in its rule, DHS did not disclose what kind of specific protocols foreign travelers will have to undergo upon arrival at Dulles. You want to know why? Again, I just read it to you. It ain't crap. It ain't crap. And I mean, it is still America. Yes, I get it. But when you have situations where you have something breaking out, wouldn't you think that there'd be some restriction of travel to be able to help people in America feel a little more safe than just some like a questionnaire? So I'm trying to show everybody the loopholes in this and the double talk, the double speaking, and how nothing that they're saying matches up. But yet they're going to divert a flight from Detroit to Canada. You want to know what that sounds like? And I'm going to tell you, this kind of stuff right here almost proves to me, all right, that dude that was on that flight heading to Detroit had Ebola. Because they did divert the flight to Canada. And why was it diverted to Canada? I mean, you can't turn it around. I mean, because there ain't enough fuel. But I'm just saying. And then all those people that come into contact with it, where are they now? They were heading to Detroit. Where are they now? And they're not being told what happened, why they were diverted, any of that. I mean, none of this is strange to you. I mean, call me crazy, but that's strange to me, man. It's strange to me. And it wasn't, Trump was the one that issued the travel restrictions. I do know that. And now they're saying it's the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that issued the travel restrictions. Announced Monday that people without U.S. passports who had traveled to Congo or Uganda or South Sudan in the past 3 weeks would be restricted from entering the country. That's what it should have been. And it wasn't the CDC, it was Trump. It was announced Monday right here. That's what it should have been. And now, today, Thursday, now people are coming in. But, they're getting a little questionnaire and getting their temperature checked, because that'll stop Ebola, right? And then they call them up a week from now. How you feeling, Paul? How you feeling, bud? I'm doing all right, I guess. What if a person doesn't want to be in a hospital, and die at home? Wouldn't you just tell them, hey, I'm feeling all fine, even if you're not feeling fine? Because there's some Americans, man, we're stubborn. We don't like going to the hospital, man. We don't. Because we know that you go to the hospital, it's almost certain death. All right? It's what it feels like sometimes. Like, it literally... feels like, half the time your diagnosis is witchcraft being spoken over you, and I don't accept that in Jesus' name. I know that much. So, and it says right here, it's unclear how the new DHS rule impacts the CDC's order. So the people that are responsible for viral contagions, the CDC, are being overpowered by the Department of Homeland Security. And that just don't make no sense. It just don't make no sense. And we know within the DHS, and we've all seen the Project Veritas videos and things like that, we've all seen where you have people that are anti-American within government positions of power. And now all of a sudden there's this clash happening when before this wouldn't have happened. And now all of a sudden the DHS is overruling the CDC's order. Man, I'm telling you, something ain't right about this. There's something not right about it. And again, I mean, even USA Today is reporting on how the U.S. bound flyers are being funneled to this airport amid the Ebola outbreak. It's a thing. I just wanted to show you. It's not just, I mean, this is literally a TSA officer wearing a face mask clears a departing passenger at Dulles International Airport in Dulles, Virginia. All right. So, I mean, this was days before this picture. That's not the situation right now. Today's the 20th. It's May, or it's 21st. This was yesterday. This is yesterday that they put this out. All right. So they it's just nothing's being handled right, if you ask me. Nothing is being handled right. Now, this one was weird. All right, I'm going to show you something. This one's just weird. So there's a CDC document out there that mentions the Chicago O'Hare Airport. All right, but now Fox 32 Chicago has to come out with this Ebola screening not happening at O'Hare despite CDC document mentioning Chicago Airport, the IDPH says. Now, here's the thing. You have a flight from, Detroit that is diverted to Canada, all right, Montreal, Canada, okay, and they're not told a damn thing about what happened, and then now all of a sudden the CDC mentions. Are there people within the CDC that are trying to do good and they're trying to warn people? They're trying to say, hey, look, heads up, this needs to be happening, and then they're being overridden by the government? Is this possible? I'm just putting it out there. And I'm not praising the CDC here. I'm just saying it looks like a couple of times the CDC said something and then the US government, is going back on it. So the CDC, it mentioned Chicago O'Hare Airport Ebola screenings, okay? And they've taken that down now. And now Fox 32 Chicago has to come out and tell people, no, don't worry about that. That ain't happening. So if anybody that's watching this or knows anybody that's flying through Chicago O'Hare today or tomorrow or yesterday, or please get a hold of me at endtimestalk777@gmail.com. All lowercase letters, endtimestalk, the number 777@gmail.com. endtimestalk777@gmail.com. Because I really want to know if people are, if there's any form of screening going on, or temperatures even being checked with the gun, like with the no touch gun that they use to check your temperature. So if you could inform me on that, that'd be real swell. But this was brought out today, this morning, just a couple of hours ago. So again, it raises more questions than we're given any answers. All right. And I mean, just pointing this one out, this one's, again, we didn't see this with hantavirus. We didn't see this with these different other things that have been happening recently, because we've been expecting that they're going to pull this trigger. But it's like, it's like they're literally like he's watching the ball on the roulette wheel, or like even just Russian roulette. You know what I mean? We know there's a bullet in the chamber, but click this virus, click this virus, click this virus, nothing yet. Let's keep going. Click another virus, no, nothing yet. And eventually, though, there's a bullet loaded in the chamber, and we know what their plans are. And they're holding it to our heads is what they're doing. And then here you have the World Health Organization chief concerned over the scale and speed of an Ebola outbreak, as Congo reports 134 dead. That was 5 deaths ago. And that was early this morning when I looked those numbers up. And it's, literally hour by hour, there's people dying and are suspected to have this. And they're saying, and again, earlier I showed you where the Al Jazeera is saying it's 600 cases of suspected, stuff, so it's just crazy how fast it's spreading. It says the head of the World Health Organization on Tuesday expressed concern over the scale and speed of an outbreak of a rare type of Ebola known as Bundibugyo in eastern Congo, where authorities reported 134 suspected deaths and more than 500 suspected cases. The virus spread undetected for weeks after the first known death, as authorities tested for a more common type of Ebola and came up negative. Health experts, and so there was they really undershot it. People are sick. They're bleeding out of their face and their rectum and every orifice they got, right? And you're testing them, and it's not coming up. It's coming up negative. Test for something else. It's like this has been allowed to happen. They have failed at every turn in trying to keep a handle on this. And that's what I see. You know what I mean? As I've been digging into it more and more, and the details of this more and more. Health experts and aid workers said the Bundibugyo virus had no approved medicines or vaccine, has no approved medicines or vaccines. In Bunia, the site of the first known death in Bunia, health workers in protective gear moved among residents wearing fabric masks. They say, I know the consequences of Ebola. I know what it's like, said a worried resident. Noella Lumo. Congo was expecting shipments from the United States and Britain of an experimental vaccine for different types of Ebola. Isn't this one that Moderna was just given $27 million to make for the Bundibugyo virus and like 6 or 7 others? Developed by researchers at Oxford. Yep, that's the one, the $27 million one right there, said Jean-Jacques Muyembe, a virus expert at the National Institute of Biomedical Research. We will administer the vaccine and see who develops the disease, he said. So you're going to test it on them? But experts said such efforts would take time. So again, here's that vaccine stuff. You can get people pumped up with the vaccine. World Health Organization Director General said he was deeply concerned about the scale and speed of the epidemic and pointed to the emergence of cases in urban areas. That's interesting. I didn't hear that part before. Now it's in urban areas, not just like the outskirts in a mining town. The deaths of healthcare workers and significant population movement. In Congo, 30 cases have been confirmed. Tedros later told a meeting of the UN Health Agency's Emergency Committee. He said neighboring Uganda has informed the World Health Organization of 2 confirmed cases, including a death in its capital, Kampala, among people who have traveled from Congo. World Health Organization expects the outbreak to last for months at least. Do you hear that? Do you hear that right there? The WHO expects the outbreak to last for months at least. So this is something that's growing in concern, and it's not getting any better, I don't think, anytime soon. And could this be some kind of sickness that terrorist organizations try to obtain because they know that there are people out there with it? And if it's so widespread, I mean, my mind's just kind of racing with, wow, this is just insane the way that this has been handled and the way it's going to be handled, the way they're bringing people into, Virginia in America from these countries and just giving them, a little questionnaire and a little temperature check. The World Health Organization has declared the Ebola outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. Well, yeah. Well, America ain't taking it too seriously now, even though Trump put it in place that they were to just cut everything off. The CDC supposedly was in on that. I don't know if that's true or not, but the DHS came right back around and said, no, we're going to allow them in here and we're going to funnel it. That's crazy to me. And they funnel it with a questionnaire and a thermometer. That's it. Requiring a coordinated response, resources were being rushed to 2 affected provinces near Uganda. Parts of eastern Congo are in the hands of armed rebels, complicating sending aid. So, again, you have people that are literally violent and preventing people that need help. So it's like everything's being done to promote the spread of this crap. No wonder it's spreading, right? No wonder it's spreading. The head of the WHO team in Congo, Dr. Ansia, said authorities haven't identified patient 0. Well, you obviously haven't identified patient 0, and you definitely haven't identified where this is even coming from. They tell you, all right, this is what they know. They don't know, and it blows my mind. All right, they don't know where where patient 0 is. They don't know what animal this has come from, but they say, we know it's an animal. That's what they say. That's what they say. They have cooked the books to say, we know it's an animal, but I think this is something that's lab leaked at this point. It's hyper contagious. The numbers are growing every day. All right. The numbers are growing every day. The thing that I think that people are bots is I'm not going to say the name, but a person in my live chat that is saying Satan is the prince of air, turn off all electronics and everything would be fine. Now, here is the thing. Why are you on an electronic then? That's what I need to know. And so that person's getting blocked because I can tell that they are just a AI account because it was such a silly statement. Such a silly statement. You're on an electronic device and you're saying get off all electronic devices because because Satan is alive. That's crazy to me. Anyways, so and I'm not trying to be rude to the person if they're real. It's just that's a absolute crazy statement. Um, Again, and I'm getting back to this here. She also said Ervebo vaccine used against a different type of Ebola was among those considered for possible use, but anything approved would take 2 months to become available. So this thing's going to spread for the next 2 months until something is approved. This lady says, I don't see that in 2 months we will be done with this outbreak, she said. This is someone who has eyes on the ground. This is something that you need to take seriously and sear into your memory, because not only is the oil crisis not done yet, this crisis isn't done yet either. And I'll be honest with you, they know damn well how far this thing is spreading. They know damn well how bad it is, and they're not telling us. And they're telling us that this stuff's months down the road, it's going to be an issue. That means they know something that they're not telling us. That's what it looks like to me. And leave it to them that it's always like that. Why would you trust your government? All right. It just proves to me that there's something happening that they don't want the public to know. For now, ANSIA said neither the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention nor the African Centers for Disease Control were on the ground. So she's saying that those people aren't even there right now. But others were, including Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross. So there are people on the ground, but the U.S. CDC and the African CDC, they ain't nowhere to be found. So you just got that right here. I mean, that's the quote right there. The UNICEF office in Bunia said it had been sent an initial 16 tons of relief supplies, mainly disinfectants and soaps, personal protective equipment, and water purification tablets and water tanks. Hella Skahiri, UNICEF's Bunia bureau chief, said that the relief supplies would be distributed according to the need across 3 treatment centers in Ituri province. Cases have been confirmed in the capital of Congo's Ituri province, Bunia, North Kivu's rebel-held capital, Goma, and the localities of Mangwalu, Nyakonde, and Butembo, home to well over 1 million people in all. Are you listening to that? Home to well over 1 million people in all these areas is where this breakout is happening. Dr. Peter Stafford, who is the Christian American doctor, Jesus be with them, and all the other people that are dealing with this horrible situation, watch over them and keep them safe, Jesus. They're saying that he is among the Bunia cases. The Christian organization he works for, I think, is the one she just mentioned, Doctors Without Borders, maybe. Anyways, Tedros said an American had tested positive and been transferred to Germany. So now you got South Sudan, you got Uganda, you got the obviously the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Then you have some dude up in Canada that we don't know if he has it or not, which the panic and the way it's being handled doesn't look good, but he's from that area. And then now you have him in Germany. All right. And then now you're allowing people into America through Virginia. I mean, do you see how this is just, remember how, this is what I remember. Okay. And I'm going to give it to you straight here. This is what I remember during the first pandemic. Okay. is that they had all these people over in China, but when they started moving them around and when they brought them into America, they flew them in and they say, we're going to funnel them here just like they're doing now. And we still had a pandemic. We still had a pandemic and we still had an issue. All right. And there was still whatever it was spread around. God knows what it was. God knows what was really going on and what the real intention behind it all was. But the reality is, until they brought in all those Americans from China that didn't supposedly have it, they got them here. And then there's people from China fleeing here. The same thing can be happening here in the Congo, in the DRC, or in Uganda, or in South Sudan. If this is becoming a thing, you think that maybe the people that live in that area might not want to stay there when this kind of shit's taking place? Excuse my language, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord. But with this kind of stuff taking place, I mean, I wouldn't want to stay there. I'd be like, I'm getting the hell out of here. I ain't fixing to sit here and bleed next to this dude over here bleeding. And I'm sorry. It's just the way that I think. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, God help me. I should be kinder than that. But I ain't fixing to lay down and bleed to death. So here's the thing. All right, you're gonna expect other people that live in that area to want to get out. Get out of here. There's an outbreak happening. If you lived in the epicenter of something, wouldn't you want to get out and stand a better chance at living rather than catching this crap? So, that's something you got to think about. People are trying to get out. People are trying to flee, even though they're not telling us that. I absolutely think that that's a thing. And, I could go over all sorts of stuff still here, but I'm going to try to hold on one second here. Here we go. There is a growing panic among some residents. And I didn't even read this after I have a feeling what I just said is going to play into this. Ebola is a highly contagious virus and it can be contracted via bodily fluids such as vomit, blood, or semen. The disease it causes is rare, but severe and often fatal. They're saying at minimum a 25% death rate. That means 2.5 people out of 10 people die for sure. Even up to 5 out of 10 people. So it has a 25, some say 30% to 50% kill rate. So think about it this way. You could catch this thing and it's 50-50 whether you're going to die or not. You have just as good a chance of dying as you do of living. That's scary stuff. All right. The symptoms include fever, headache, muscle pain, weakness, diarrhea, vomiting, stomach pain. All right. And that, I'll be honest with you, just seems like you got the flu. How do you know the difference between the flu or being sick versus having Ebola until you're bleeding and bruising? It says during an outbreak more than a decade ago that killed more than 11,000 people, many were infected while washing bodies for funerals. And we've seen the way some of these people are handling this with no gloves or nothing, just wiping blood out of the dude's face. And it was not AI. That was confirmed. AI even confirmed that was an accurate video. That is not AI, that video that I showed yesterday. Ebola is very much a disease of compassion in that it impacts the people who are more likely to be taking care of sick folks, said Dr. Craig Spencer, an associate professor at the Brown University School of Public Health, who survived Ebola more than a decade ago after contracting it in Guinea. There was growing panic in Bunia neighborhoods Tuesday. There you go. 2 days ago, there was growing panic in Bunia neighborhoods. All right. Local authorities urged people to remain calm and adhere to preventative measures, including practicing good hygiene and exercising caution during funerals. What that says to me is people was freaking out trying to get out of there is what that says to me. And this is ABC that's reporting this. All right. It says right here, it's truly sad and painful because we've already been through a security crisis. And now Ebola is here too, said Justin Nadasi, a resident of Bunia. We have to protect ourselves to avoid this epidemic. So what are you going to do? You're going to leave and going to risk everybody else around you? because you can have it for 21 days and not know it, and then start having symptoms. And it just looks like you're just normal sick at first. And then once you have symptoms, you're contagious. And who's going to have flu-like symptoms and not go to the hospital? Raise your hand. Everybody in this class right now, come on, raise your hand if you experience flu-like symptoms and you don't care to go to the hospital. I'm raising my hand with you right now. I go to the hospital for the flu. All right, so how do you know? This thing has loopholes in it like Swiss cheese, man. And when you have something that they have themselves has said is, and the World Health Organization said it, the CDC said it, that this is out of control. They don't know who patient zero is. They don't know what animal this came from. This is completely unknown. And it is spreading and spreading fast. I think that's something to be, have your eyes on. It's something I wouldn't say concerned about, because I don't like the idea of being concerned, because I trust Jesus. I do. I know he's going to protect us. Psalms 91, that is a pandemic prayer. Pray Psalm 91 over you and your family. That is I believe, truly a pandemic prayer, a viral contagion prayer. All right. Parts of it. But right here, they're saying there was growing panic in the neighborhood Tuesday. They reminded them, keep good hygiene, careful at funerals. It says, it's truly sad and painful because we've already been through a security crisis. I already read that. The most important challenge is breaking the virus transmission chain. And yeah, you ain't going to break that until you find the head dude. You need to find patient zero. All right. But the most important challenge is breaking the virus transmission chain, virus expert Muyembe said, adding that most of Congo's previous Ebola outbreaks were brought under control simply by applying public health measures. False negative test, delayed response. Yeah, so we already read about that. But so, and again, they're working, and I have this other one right here just real quick. They're working towards, getting a vaccine going for this. All right. And I don't know how far that's going to stretch. How far could they let this spread? And then maybe they give you a vaccine that actually works, but what else is in the vaccine? You know what I'm saying? Scare everybody in, give them something so scary like Ebola. Ebola's nasty, man. I don't know if any of you have watched that TV show Containment that I recommended. It's on if you have a Roku TV, there's a free channel called Tubi, Tubi, Tubi. And if you type into that, Containment Season 1, all right, 13 episode show pops up. And I mean, that seems a little pretty realistic to what an Ebola outbreak looks like. And it never came out on DVD, nothing. It never really came out in some big way. And it's actually if I just have to watch the TV show and say this is a good show or not, it's made well. And it's riveting. But it's predictive programming. And they never once during the pandemic fenced off a city. They never once during a pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, fenced off a city. And in that, and why I don't think containment is about COVID-19, that it's, and is that they fenced off the city. And there's a whole bunch of nurses that I know. I've talked to multiple nurses, and I'm telling you the God's to honest truth, people. Please listen to me when I'm telling you this. I've known multiple nurses that did not know each other. I did not bring it up to them. They were bringing it up to me. I've had multiple nurses through the time of me doing this over 4 years, okay, say that they believe an Ebola virus is coming. And I showed you 2 or 3 lives ago where, Colorado is, 7 years ago was running, drills for Ebola pandemics, right? And how there were, hospital workers that received an Ebola vaccine, an experimental Ebola vaccine. Why would they be doing this? And even, just there's so many angles to this thing. But they're prepping a vaccine for this thing. And, again, we can go and let me see if I can find it here. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm trying to find this picture. I put it away. Yeah, no, I'm going to have to pull it up on Google. Hold on. And I'm just gonna click on it here. Goodness gracious, that's not gonna work for me here. Hold on. So I'm just bringing up this picture here. I had to find it real quick. Goodness. So this is the cover of The Economist for 2026. This is their prediction for 2026. And we've gone through a lot here, especially with right here, you have, the penny right here devaluing and going down. Okay. So there is no more penny. Then you have the Neuralink right here in the brain that controls the remote controller for video games. And then you have the Neuralink coming out that these dudes are playing video games. You have the 250-year anniversary America cake. Okay. And then you have, let me make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Okay, good. Then you have the missiles here, and you have the war with Iran that's taking place. But then this is linked to this cake, this chain right here. And then you have a handcuff. All right. And obviously there's some form of revolution or lockdown taking place. And then you have this tanker right here. All right. And this to me kind of looks like something they would pack full of oil barrels. All right. And there's war. All right. It's kind of a, it's kind of fake out, like they got cannons on board, but it's symbolic of war. Then you have a directed energy weapon right here, and you see smoke. It could be from I think Blue Origins is what this phallic Jeff Bezos rocket is called. But then you have drones and all that stuff with the cord, like they're dropping off packages. That's something that would happen obviously during a pandemic or like a lockdown. All right. Then you have over here drones dropping packages, it looks like. Then you have a bomb falling in the water over here. You see the little bomb, right? Then you have robot dogs everywhere. You have a robot dog here. You have a robot dog here. All right. Where they are now strolling the streets in like Atlanta, Georgia, and other places. And then you have these robots that are carrying packages and delivering them. But then you have these injections right here. Could this be Hanta and Ebola? I'm just putting it out there, but they have these syringes right here. And obviously, this is Xi Jinping. This is Vladimir Putin. It's clear as day. This is either George Soros or Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know which, but it's one of the two. And then this is Pam Bondi, I believe, Donald Trump, and this could be Kash Patel, possibly. I'm not sure. But you have the money. It's not burning. It's just being flown around. I see that as inflation. It's just kind of flying around. It's inflated. More drones dropping packages, more robot dogs. All during the Olympics. You got the soccer player here, and you got the World Cup about ready to be in America. You know what I mean? So it's like this kickoff. Is the World Cup the kickoff? Is like during the World Cup, everything going to get nasty and everything going to begin to fall apart even more? All right. And you got all the prescription drugs that are all over the place and pills. And I mean, this is insanity. This to me, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think this is an ancient, like Babylonian, Mesopotamian, ship. And it kind of, or like a Persian ship. Could this represent Iran and the war with Iran? I'm not sure. Someone would, comment on the comment section or in the live chat about what boat this is. It's not Viking. I know it's not Viking. It's something else. But you got Vladimir Zelensky right here. So this is all, it seems to be coming down the pike. It's like it's all happening, even down to the 2 syringes now. And I mean, here's fire off in the distance. There's going to be wildfires. There's going to be smoke. They got directed energy weapons. They got satellites beaming frequencies right here. I mean, in America's flag, it could have been raised up a little higher and you see it more. It's literally like a revolution is covering up the American flag. And so, and we had that huge scuffle with ICE and everything that was going on in Minnesota or whatever. So I mean, it's just, this thing has been so accurate, and everything else still looks pretty hairy. And it looks to me like there's different things on here that you could kind of say, hey, this looks like a lockdown. Like, this looks like a lockdown. I don't know about you, but all of it looks super strange to me. And again, this is interesting. Registered nurse here, Misfit Witness, says, we were trained using hazmat suits and PPE, personal protective equipment, I believe is what that stands for an Ebola outbreak back in 2013 and 2014. It's not a Viking ship. It's not a Viking ship. But so yeah, I mean, I feel like everything that we've kind of talked about today, it kind of grows the concern that I have, like watching it. I'm like, okay, well, obviously I need to be paying closer attention to this, and I just want to make sure that you guys have the updates. As I find out for myself what's going on, I want to be able to give updates to you guys about what's happening, so that way, you guys can make informed decisions about what you're going to do and how you're going to live your lives. You know what I mean? I want to help people stay alive as long as possible up until the rapture. Sometimes people just pass away and there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, I've even had subscribers that subscribe to this channel that passed away, that were hoping for a rapture, and they ended up passing away. And man, I miss Susan terribly. She always meant so much to me. And I've had even a moderator completely disappear. So we're not guaranteed a tomorrow, but I want to help people, be able to at least have extra information. My channel might not be the only information you're gathering, and that is a great thing. Don't ever go with just one source, but I'm giving you an angle to look at here that you might not see other places, possibly with certain aspects of what I talk about. I look at things a little differently. And it's not like I do that on purpose. I'm trying to cut through, excuse my language, I'm trying to cut through the bullshit. There's a lot of it out there, and I want to see through in between the sentences. There's always something more that they're telling us, and when they're saying what they're saying. And so when you read the news, it's always good to look at every word and how does this word apply to this? How does this make this sound? You know what I mean? So I think that's an important angle to look at, and also to look at the different things that are happening, like with the oil and all that stuff. This all kind of adds to a crock pot of chaos that is brewing right now, and it's just a matter of time before this thing boils over. And it takes a long time for a crock pot to boil, but a crock pot can boil what's in it. I've been cooking chili, and we do that day-long chili around here where you start it in the morning and you eat it at night. Best chili ever. But I'll tell you, I've come up to it and take the lid off. Man, it's cooking and bubbling, man. So it can happen, but it takes a long time. And so I really feel like there's something coming of some of this, but it's like we're yet to see what this is going to do. So heads on a swivel, everybody. Stay close to Jesus, all right? Time is super short, yes, but also prepare and be aware and use common sense. And most of all, stay in tune with Jesus, focus on him, and don't be scared of any of this stuff. Yeah, it might happen, it might not happen, but no matter what happens, Jesus is in control. May God bless you all. May he keep you. And please don't forget to go out and change this world in which you live.